Will Bohemian Rhapsody rock the box office? We have Boyer Race reviews, and Disney goes a little nutty this weekend. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
Champions. We are the champions right here at LAOFCS Weekly, episode 13. We are back. We were sorry we weren't here last week. We wanted to have a nice Halloween, so we took an extra few days off. So joining me this week, we have a brand new face to the show this week, Mrs. Nikki Novak.
I love that intro. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I need you to come everywhere with me now and just do that before I enter a room.
Nikki Novak is here in the house.
Yes.
And
Rama.
And I'm Rama, and Rama Screen is my website, and that's my website. Thank you for having me, Scott.
Thank you to be back. I feel really grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I love having you guys on. And Nikki has opened up her schedule, so she'll be hosting or coming on co-hosting a few more times now.
Yes.
So I'm very happy about that.
Well, look, don't say that till the end. You might not want to have me back. We'll see.
Listen, not to give out a shout out to another network, but our president, Scott Menzel, does a show. You were on there twice on Collider. You were wonderful on there.
Thank you.
And we are so lucky to have you as not only part of the show, but a member of our organization.
I love being a member. You guys are amazing.
Oh.
We love having you.
Yeah, it's a nice family. You get that, and you work your butt off.
I try. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. How this is going to work, we're going to actually skip over the second segment, which is going to be Indie Spotlight, because we decided that this week, since there's so many movies coming out and there's so much talk about Oscar season now, that we're going to dedicate more of this episode towards Oscar movies and maybe one movie that's not so Oscar worthy. But we're going to talk about the new releases, and then we will reveal which one of these new releases will be the movie pick of the week. Then we're going to jump into Retro Rewind, which we're going to talk about an older film that we want to recommend. And then finally, we're going to talk about Best Actress nominations or predictions. We're going to talk about all. So, all right. So how this ballot's looking this week is, despite the critic reviews on a sister station of yours, Mrs. Nikki Novak.
Yes.
It seems like our group disagrees with the critical score of Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
It is the most voted on movie this week.
Is it really?
Yes, it is.
Oh, wow.
And everyone else did not have any comparison in terms of numbers. So congratulations to Bohemian Rhapsody. You are the movie pick of the week. Yes, Rami Malek and company is a champion. So, Nikki, let's start with you. What were your initial thoughts on Bohemian Rhapsody?
So it was interesting because I covered, they did this whole experience in Vegas for a bunch of press where we got to fly in a private jet and we got to see, first we saw 30 minutes of the film. So that was sort of my entry into watching it, was I saw certain scenes. So, I'm sure you've had this happen where you see it and so it's already sort of been set up in your mind. And I thought this movie had so much joy, and I think I'm truly baffled by why the score is as low as it is.
Yeah, me too.
Because I don't know whether it's the Bryan Singer thing or whether people were expecting something else. I think when they hear Queen, maybe people wanted more of that indie feel and get really dark and gritty, and that's not what this is. This movie is a celebration. Rami Malek is so fantastic in this. I mean, he just embodies, but not only that, there's just a likability about him as a person, as an actor, and he's a true actor. And I think the way that the band sort of comes together in the film, and it's less of, and yeah, you have the drama and you have his personal drama, but I just thought they did a fantastic job. I fully enjoyed every moment of it, and then the Live Aid performance at the end, there was a bold choice to have it just sort of play out in real time and just sort of copy it. And I don't know if you guys did the same thing, but the second the movie ended, I went to my car and YouTubed the actual Live Aid performance and went, wow.
Yes.
And I thought that was a different choice for a film. I like that they did that. I like that they went there. Okay, enough of me.
Go ahead.
No, that was perfect. I've been a Queen fan forever, as you all are. And, I'm sure you've heard that Sacha Baron Cohen wanted to make this one first.
Yeah.
But his idea was too much, I don't know. I heard it's too much R-rated, trying to explore more of Freddie's dark side. When Roger Taylor and the band wanted to make it be about them and the music, instead of just that one focus. So I'm glad they went with this direction. I feel like so hopeful and inspired after watching the film. It's like so joyous, such a great celebration, like you said. And Rami is just perfect. Not only does he look the part, man, he got that essence of Freddie Mercury down pat, like as if I was watching Freddie Mercury on that screen. I think it's fantastic. I know after A Star Is Born, even though the concert scenes would look organic in that one, coming to a CG green screen concert in the movie Bohemian Rhapsody is kind of like, oh, I could kind of tell the difference now. But it doesn't take me away. I feel like I'm part of that sea of audience in that Live Aid. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you guys. I think, Nikki, you pointed this out. My thing is with reviews is that what I've seen and I read is that people are looking for a different movie than this movie is. And they're trying to judge this movie based on that. They're like, oh, this is not what I wanted. This is not what I was expecting. And what people are forgetting is that this is not a movie about Freddie Mercury. This is a movie about the band Queen. So, yes, Freddie Mercury is a big part of that. And for most of the runtime, we get most of Freddie Mercury's story. Do they dive as deeply into his sexual, stuff? No. But do we really need that? And this is not that type of movie. We would have an art house movie that would do something like that.
Right.
Maybe a documentary would do something like that. But this is not the mainstream 20th Century Fox movie that, people would go out to see. And what I think so many people are forgetting is that right now we live in a period of time where everything is dark and gloomy. And this movie is very hopeful. Like you mentioned, you as well, Rama. Like, this is a very hopeful, it's a very happy film. Does some stuff happen? Does the movie feel a little formulaic at times? Yes, it's beat by beat. Like, the band gets in, they get upset, they yell at each other, they break up for a short period of time. But that's every rock and roll story. Like, the reason why they're formulaic is because that's how the story plays out. Does it dive as deeply as it should at certain times? Probably not. But for the runtime of this movie and for what the movie was going for, I think it delivers the goods.
Yeah.
And go ahead, please.
And this is not really a review, but I did talk to the remaining members of Queen in Vegas. And first of all, ask them, this took 10 years for you guys to make. Are you happy with the product? They were still putting final touches on the movie, but I could tell they were genuinely happy with it. They weren't just like, oh, we're just happy that they really felt connected to it. They really felt they were a part of it. And they told me the most interesting story because, and this isn't a spoiler, but in the beginning when they first meet Freddie Mercury, I forget which one of them makes fun of his mouth, his teeth.
Yes, yeah.
And that was one of my favorite scenes in the movie because he comes back with sort of a cheeky comment. And I said, did that actually happen? And he said, well, I didn't actually say that and I would never have made fun of him. But for dramatic effect, they wanted it in the movie. He said, one thing you didn't see, which I thought was so sweet, was that he said when Freddie first sang for us, he was so painfully shy. He could barely stand on a stage. He was not the showman that he became. And that's why I think it's such an incredible story and why it should be celebrated. Because he was one of the greatest showmen, one of your favorite movies.
Yes.
of all time. He just, and the way Rami captured that sensitivity. And like you said, they could have gone down that road of being this dark, sort of more outhouse. They could have gone that route too. They could have been like an art house film. And it would have been equally great and fun. But what I like is that different generations can appreciate this movie. I know so many people who want their teens to go see it because they listen to Queen. Like, there's a whole younger generation. And do they really want to see the darkness? No, it's like something that everybody can enjoy.
I agree. And I think for the success of this movie to have this sort of, it's already talking about opening at 30 to 35 million this weekend. Yes. An independent film that just focuses on Freddie Mercury's life is not going to do that well. It's not going to be that big of a commercial success. But this is going to be a success because this is a type of movie that people are going to rejoice. They're going to keep going to see it over and over again. I don't even want to know what the Blu-ray sales are going to be for this. Yeah. The soundtrack, I did want to talk about that too. Is that are you guys upset that Rami Malek didn't sing?
Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm not. Like, to me, Freddie Mercury is the greatest singer in the history of rock music.
Right.
It's like I've seen some people try to impersonate him or sound kind of like him, but it's like it will never be Freddie Mercury. So I totally get it, and I don't mind that it's not his voice. It's fine by me. Yeah.
I think he would have ruined it. And like you said, he's got an incredible voice. And there was one scene at the beginning where he sings a cappella.
Yes.
And you realize he shouldn't be singing. And he's not a singer.
Yeah.
And certain films, look, you have Lady Gaga who sings in Star is Born. She's a star in her own right. Like she's a singer. So why make Rami Malek try to sing like Freddie Mercury? It would have been ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's funny because I see a lot of that's another thing that I see a lot of criticism about is like, oh, he doesn't sing in the movie. It's like, but who could replace Freddie Mercury?
Right.
Like it's like it would just be an insult to injury. Like it would not work. So I don't even know why anyway. And I think that's I ask people this all the time, and especially in our group, is because we have Stars Born, and now we have Bohemian Rhapsody. And I asked my wife, Ashley, right after we saw the movie, do you think Bradley Cooper's better or do you think Rami Malek's better? You guys? What do you mean?
Well, it's different because Bradley does his own singing.
Right,
Yeah,
but
it's not
all
comparison.
that aside, but
Yeah.
he does his own singing, but doesn't this role require so much more of Rami Malek? Like in terms of a performance.
And he does his own singing, but he's not being compared to a band that he's trying to imitate.
Right.
Yeah. So
I think the best actor category and best director are going to be the two toughest categories this year at the Oscars. Best actor category is off the charts this year, and there's such different performances. Personally, Bradley Cooper went to a level of acting that I haven't seen in a long time. I think he was phenomenal. And so I would give him a slight edge, but it's totally different. It really is apples and oranges in a way.
You love that so much you went as Halloween. You went.
I did. And I was gonna go as the Bradley character. At the last minute, I'm like, I don't think I can pull this off.
I was gonna say, if I may, I think for those of us fans of biopics about music bands, sometimes we, like you said earlier, we expect something like The Doors, where it's Oliver Stone made movie The Doors, but it's about Jimmy Morrison instead of The Doors.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Bohemian Rhapsody is not like that. And like you said, it's about the band. And I talked to my friend the other day, why wasn't it titled Queen? Why wasn't it titled, Freddie or whatever? Why Bohemian Rhapsody? It's the perfect title for the movie because it's the song that when it came out, people hated it. I was like, but then they just persisted and it became a fan favorite years later on. It's an embodiment of rock music. Rock music is about sticking it to the man. Rock music about rebelling. And I love that they picked that one Bohemian for the title.
I will also talk. I do want to point out this one scene. I mean, the Mike Myers scene in this movie is brilliant. Like,
exactly.
Whoever wrote that should get an extra zero on their paycheck because that was just great. Because not only because it ties into an obvious movie. If you're a film fan, you should know what movie that is. I'm not going to ruin it for you if you don't. But just the way that it plays out in the conversation, and I mean. You can't tell it's him. Like you're just half the time you're like, who is that? And then there's a little bit of the little hint of Shrek or Fat Bastard in the voice a little bit. And you're kind of like, oh yeah, that's Mike Myers. Yeah.
Fellow Canadian.
Yes. But I just really enjoyed this movie. I think it's a feel-great film, and it goes to show you that musicals, whether it's a biopic or just a movie musical like Mamma Mia or Greatest Showman. There's audiences for these movies and people want to see them, and it's a nice change of pace, and we don't get that many of them, and they always do well at the box office. Yeah. Well, not always, but usually.
And everybody knows that music.
Right.
No matter what generation you're from.
True.
Everybody knows all those main Queen songs that were featured in the film. So, you could bring a 12-year-old to see it and they can enjoy it. And it's something, I think that's important. I think, and what you're saying, and I'm sure you're the same as me. I'm seeing a ton of screenings right now for award season, and a lot of the stuff out there is really dark. And why is it that we always criticize and think things that are lighter are not as good? We always sort of think that they have to be this dark and depressing movie to really have an impact.
Right. I agree. What would you give this movie out of 10?
10.
10? Wow.
I loved it.
Yes, I love it.
I would watch it again and again.
10. How about you, Nikki?
I mean, I wasn't going to go that high. I was going to say 8.5. 8.5. I'd give it an 8.5.
I gave it a 9. Yeah, okay. So that's pretty good. So it's a 9 even out here. That's really high praise for this movie. Another movie that I sung very high praise, but I think Rama has a different opinion for, is Boy Erased with Lucas Hedges, Nicole Kidman, Russell Crowe. It's based on a true story about this boy who goes into gay conversion therapy. I saw this at Telluride. Lucas Hedges, to me, is one of the best young actresses of this generation.
Yeah.
I know people love Timothée Chalamet. I think Timothée Chalamet's okay, but Lucas Hedges is the shit in my eyes. So,
Timothée Chalamet's more than okay. But
you
I was a huge Manchester by the Sea fan, so I'm with you on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
But really, it's like when you look at Call Me by Your Name and you look at Beautiful Boy, it's essentially like a lot of the same stuff that him crying. It's like the same. Even the focus on like him crying and the emotional stuff is very similar in both movies.
Well, the person I've compared him to is Leonardo DiCaprio, because do you remember when Leo came on the scene? And I'm not talking about Gilbert Grape, because that was a total departure from who he is. But there's certain actors, Robert Redford had the same
Dane
quality.
DeHaan's really upset with you right now, just letting you know.
But there's certain actors that can just exist on screen, and their mannerisms, everything, and that's why I like Timothée Chalamet, because he's so natural on screen. And I think that's what you're picking up on and you're seeing as a similar thing. His sort of, even between playing a drug addict and not a drug addict, there's certain mannerisms that he's just so good at just being on camera and being captivating. But in terms of like emotional depth and going to different places, maybe I don't know if that's what you're saying about Lucas, that he sort of has more range.
Yes. I mean, I don't know if you've seen Ben is Back yet. I mean, even mid-90s, he's not in mid-90s that long, but even his character in there, he's really different. Manchester by the Sea, even Moonrise Kingdom, dating all the way back to that. I mean, he's just an actor who just has so much range. And what I love about him is that he can act without opening his mouth. He could just look at the camera, his eyes do something, and you just feel that sympathy towards his character. And he does that a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
So, you can share your view.
It was an important film, and I hope it gets seen by everybody because of the subject matter, and to point out how traumatizing and horrifying gay conversion therapy is. So it's a movie that everybody needs to see. But I just feel like I wish that the movie had fleshed out more of the relationship and the interaction between the teenagers stuck in the facility. I feel like there's not. I wanted to see more of that. It's like, so when one of them, no spoiler, I guess, something happened to him, like, okay, but we don't get to see Lucas and interacting with him, or there's no camaraderie. And there's the film also introduces some of the supporting actors, kind of like pushing them to the front, but then pulls them back again. Like, all right, this might be a potential lover or potential something, and then we don't get to see him after that one scene.
Interesting.
That's how I feel.
Interesting, because I agree with you. I see what you're saying. Is this Joel Edgerton's first directing?
No, he did The Gift and he did Loving.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think there was a few missed moments in there, a few things that sort of went in one direction and then went into another. But it's one of my favorite movies of the year.
Mine too.
And actually my favorite scene in any movie of this year was the Nicole Kidman. There's a scene between Nicole and Lucas towards the end that is going to be her tape that she's going to send to all the, it was my gosh, like the emotion that came out of her, but it wasn't too forced. It wasn't too much. It was so beautiful, and it just showed a mother's love for her son and that camaraderie. And where it was maybe lacking between the people in the facility, I don't know, maybe because it's based on a true story, if that's the way it really happened, that they were all sort of afraid to talk to each other, and maybe. That's why you felt that awkwardness.
I feel like what they were trying to do with this movie, there's been, not a lot, but there's been a few movies that have come out about gay conversion therapy. Cameron Post from earlier this year. I think back about the comedy, But I'm a Cheerleader. It always shows the inside of the groups. And in this one, it was really his personal take on this. And I felt like it was how his life was affected. So the people in the group kind of played second fiddle to him. But I feel like that was done in a way to make it more personal and make it feel like it was about him and what he was going through. To comment on your Nicole Kidman scene, I raise you that scene by the Russell Crowe scene at the end, where they're like both going back and forth, and you can just see both of them, and it's beautifully done. Neither one of them are crying, but it's just, again, like they're on the verge, both of them, and you can just see how passionately they are speaking to one another. Both those scenes I could probably just send in
You're
for the
making
Oscar.
me cry. I'm actually tearing up thinking about it.
Yeah.
See that father to son moment, that's the one that was missing in Beautiful Boy.
Oh,
Yeah, the one that
with-
Russell Crowe and
with
Lucas
that.
Hedges. Yeah.
Nikki has much different opinion on Beautiful Boy. Yeah, I know she does.
Okay.
You want to share your opinion on Beautiful Boy? Ro?
Wait, are you talking about something I've said before specifically?
I'm just talking. I watched you on Mance's show.
the timeline.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved the acting. I thought they were both great. I thought their interactions were great, but the jumping around of the timeline, it would be different because basically they were jumping from when he was a kid, and that was very clear when he was a kid, but then they were jumping around when Timothy looked the same and Steve looked the same. There was sort of no physical change. So you're like, hold on. And you had to wait till the scene unfolded to see at what point in the story they were. So it was jumping around in time, and it took me out of the story. And Mance loved that and thought that was, but I didn't think it was necessary.
That movie for me didn't. I mean, and Rama felt the same way. I don't think we got to talk about Beautiful Boy, so why not throw that in? We talked about award season anyhow. I mean, to me, I thought that movie was. I know. And I will admit on air today that the comment that he made on the show about the privileged white person, I said that on Facebook. And the thing was about that movie, and that was a joke, by the way, but of course I know that white people can have problems like this too. But the thing is that the movie for me didn't show how anything else mattered in their lives. It was just those two, and everything else was forgotten. They show him working at the Rolling Stone. They don't show how this has affected his job really. They don't really talk about the ex-wife character at all. That she's kind of pushed to the side. I feel bad for Amy Ryan. She's a great actress. She has nothing to do in the movie. It's just Timothy crying, Steve Carell yelling, and that's really all there is.
I have to disagree with you.
I know. But then we had movies like Star is Born, and then we have movies like Ben is Back, which I know you guys haven't seen yet, where it just feels like the world is going on around you, and you're still dealing with addiction and stuff like that. But it's just strange to me for that movie. It just didn't work because it just felt like two people, either one crying, one yelling, and that's all it was. Rama, go ahead.
So,
share your thoughts.
No. It's interesting. So, Beautiful Boy, Boy Erased, Ben is Back. So, this parent and child relationship season that we have,
right,
either addiction or dealing with sexuality. It's pretty interesting theme for our season. I think. Just want to point out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was you can share your
Beautiful Boy?
Yeah, share your view on Beautiful Boy since we're going.
I mentioned to you, I wanted to have that father-son moment that Russell Crowe and Lucas Hedges had.
Yes.
In the dealership in the Boy Erased. I didn't feel like the Beautiful Boy has that. There was just that dining scene where they were he's just asking for money and he's just trying to figure him out. It's okay, but let's talk, guys. Let's talk about this shit. I feel like it doesn't help for that to me, but that's just me.
Go ahead.
I didn't disagree. It was the only movie I've seen this year where nobody moved after the credits rolled. Everybody sat there for a minute, and it felt to me like they captured something so heavy and so deep. And what I liked about what they captured and the fact that they didn't have that reconciliation or that moment is real. I mentioned this on the Man Show. I dated an addict who was supposedly in recovery for 6 years and found out later he was hiding it from me, from the family. And that dynamic with the family was what I saw, where you can never get to that person because they're shrouded in so many lies covering up the addiction. I mean, this person would say, I'm going to a meeting tonight, and we'd say, okay, see ya, and he'd come back and he was not a meeting.
Wait until you see Ben is Back.
Okay.
And then you're coming back on the show that week. Because I'm telling you, you'll see. You'll see what I'm talking about.
But yeah, I thought it hit an emotional...
Yeah?
It went to an emotional level that I appreciated, and I liked what I felt at the end was that there's no resolution, and that's the truth. It's a lifelong battle, and the person can never really, they don't get over it. Every day is a struggle, even 20 years later, sober or whatever. I know people who've been sober for many, many years, and every day is still a struggle. And I like that there wasn't this bow on the end, that sometimes you feel like you can't get to that person. And I felt the pain of Steve Carell and how a family member would feel so helpless. Like, he's really stuck. What do you do? If you help, it's just going to be a vicious cycle. If you step away, what if something happens dramatic? And then you kick yourself for the rest of your life. I thought that they really did a great job of capturing that. But the timeline wigged me.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, though. So that's another perspective. That's why I love film reviews, because I don't have an addict in my life, so I can't approach from that angle. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's interesting because me and Ashley both have addicts in our life, and we both felt a disconnect. It's really strange. This is one of the most polarizing films of the year. I feel like people are really either on board for this or they're totally not on board for this. It's very strange. And I'm sorry, Lucas Hedges, that we hijacked Boy Erased to talk about Beautiful Boy. But real quick, Boy Erased rating.
Go ahead.
Oh my gosh.
Out of 10, right?
Yep.
I'm gonna give it an 8.5 too. I'm gonna keep it at the same level as Bohemian. Yeah.
I'll be kind. 7 out of 10.
I gave it a 9.
Okay.
So my God, we're just voted the same thing. That's fun. I did not see Body. Did anyone see Bodied?
No.
No. Okay.
Moving on.
Moving on. Disney goes a little nutty with Nutcracker and the Four Realms. I don't think that any of us really have that much to say, but we'll say it briefly. I just want to say that I thought this movie was a mess. And it's slightly better than Wrinkle in Time, but not much.
Interesting.
I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I mean, but it's that old concept again. It's just so tiring, going through the wardrobe, go to another realm, rescue that realm, and go back. I was like, oh, but then they put Tchaikovsky in it. But then again, not to take away from Misty Copeland's amazing ballet dance, but I feel
was
like,
just shoehorned in the movie.
Exactly.
It felt so out of place.
Yeah, no, I don't argue with you. Yeah, exactly. So that's all it is. That's all the movie has to me. The rest are just old concept recycled. But it has its charms. I think it's gonna hit its target audience. So what the hell?
It's interesting because I think this is a film that the acting was very simple. Even though you have Keira Knightley, you have Morgan Freeman, you have Helen Mirren, it was kept very simple. And I think what they were doing is making a movie for kids. This is not a movie that the parents go to like The Incredibles and there's the adult humor in there and the kid humor in there. This is a movie for kids. And when I watched it, I mean, visually, can we say how spectacular it was?
It was wonderful.
Some parts.
I thought top to end, I thought it was spectacular.
I thought some of it was like the CGI was really bad.
I didn't notice. I think the 10-year-old girl in me appreciated all the pink and all the glitter and the sugar plum fairy.
I will say that Keira Knightley is amazing in the movie. She's like by far, she's the best thing about the movie, in my opinion.
I would love to have a cotton candy for hair.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But, it's interesting you point that out, Nikki. I think, they came in with Wrinkle in Time. I don't know if you saw this at the Disney lot, and they had Ava come in and said that this is a movie made for like 10 to 13-year-olds. It's for kids. And that's very much how I felt about that movie, like where I felt like if you were over a certain age, you really couldn't appreciate it. And maybe that's the case with this too.
I think with Disney movies, when you hear Disney, you hear Marvel, you hear Pixar, you assume that it's going to be a movie for everybody. It's going to be this massive success across the board, $100 million opening, that kind of thing. And so when it's not, when it's more specific, I think people go, wait, what about me? That's not for me. So, I mean, like I said, 10-year-old girl in me enjoyed.
Yeah, it's going to hit its target audience, definitely.
You want to do a rating real quick on that?
Oh, out of 10? 5.
5.
I have a really hard time giving scores. Oh my gosh. I'll give it an 8.
Oh, that is generous. That is generous. I did not see Private War, but you two did, right?
Yes.
Go ahead, share a little bit about that.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I loved it. I think here's the thing. I want to put it in this context. I'm not going to make it rambling too long, but I hate the concept of White House correspondent dinner, where politicians and press having dinner together, cozying up. Every year they do it. And so this movie reminds us, like, hey, this is what true journalism is, and not supposed to be cozying up with the people who are, powerful people. You're supposed to hold them accountable. And so we need movies like more movies like this. Marie Colvin is an interesting character, and Rosamund Pike really embodies her. She disappears in that Marie Colvin, like chain smoking, heavy drinking, American eye patch wearing. It's fantastic. I think she's gonna get nominated for this. If she doesn't, I would be completely shocked. But yeah, back to the journalism again. It's so frustrating when we see the media right now being stenographers. The for example, the press secretary would be like, okay, here's what happened, and then they just regurgitate, or just like, okay, here's what they told me to say. No, people like Murray Colvin, people like Glenn Greenwald, they're the guys who are out there in the field finding what exactly happened. Here's what the powerful people, here's what they do with your tax money and in your name, and here are the people who are affected by that policy. And so that's what journalism is supposed to be. Not reading off teleprompter, not the stenographers. So thank you for A Private War, and it's gonna be on the same level as All the President's Men, The Post, Spotlight, and movies that actually depict true, not anything other but true journalism. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I got invited to the screening and really didn't even know what it was about. I just sort of, it was a last minute thing. Let's go see it. They were doing a Q&A, and I've rarely seen a movie about war that depicted it so realistically, and it's because the director is a war documentarian, and that's what he does. And Rosamund Pike, to me, should be a frontrunner for Best Actress, hands down. She's fantastic in this movie. And, if you did the same thing as me and Googled Marie Colvin after and looked at her whole story, and it's compelling and it's unbelievable what you see, and it just makes you go, even though we have so much going on in our country, how lucky every single one of us are that we live in a basically peaceful country, basically, compared to what you see.
Yes.
And she's just phenomenal. She's a powerhouse. She's an undeniable force of nature in this movie. And it was very personal for all of them. In the Q&A after, everybody was just stunned. Really well done.
I'm shocked at how little talk this movie has.
And that's my fear. I think with what's going on in the world right now, I think people aren't necessarily, same thing happened with the Michael Moore movie. People aren't seeking it out in the theater. They're like, I get enough of it on TV. I don't want to go be depressed in the theater. I want to go escape. And this is really flying under the radar. And I'm afraid for award season that there's not going to be enough. It's not going to have the buzz necessary to get the nominations and the attention.
And it's a small studio too.
Yeah.
They invited me. I think there was 2 or 3 screenings that I got invited to. They just never lined up. But I'm going to go either this weekend or try this week coming up to go see this, because everyone who I talked to really loved this, especially Rosamund Pike. Everyone said that she's incredible in this film. So I need to see this, because I think over the last couple of years, she's really proven she is a great actress. Yes. So I'm looking forward to seeing this.
And to Nikki's point, also, like you said, the war scenes, the conflict scenes, man, when I was screening it, I felt like the bullets are flying at me. I was like, it was just so visceral and immersive. I love it. Yeah.
Rating?
I want to give 8 out of 10.
8.5.
There you go.
Terrible with scores.
Just go ahead. 8.5.
8.5.
Nikki, 8.5, girl.
Well, then I just feel like, I feel like we're then comparing them, like by saying one's an 8.5, one's an 8, and sometimes all these films are so different. It's very hard.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we're so, like, as critics, right? I mean, we're like almost forced to always give a rating for something. Rotten Tomatoes, right? It's always like, what's the rating out of 100? And then like everything, is it a B? Mance does the B thing, and then other people do how many stars? It's just, I hate it too, because sometimes like the 9 for Bohemian Rhapsody is different than the 9 for Boy Erased. Exactly. Like it's a totally different 9.
Yeah.
9 for enjoyable, 9 for important.
Agree.
So. Since we're talking about all these movies, and you mentioned it a couple times, we're just going to do the Best Actress before we do the Retro Rewind. So before we talk about the ones that everyone's talking about, is there any person on this list who you feel like you would want to be talked about in award season that's not being talked about right now?
Elsie Fisher.
Yeah,
for 8th grade.
I agree.
And look, it's another tough category this year, so I haven't really seen her in anything else. So, sometimes you have to compare performances to say, was this really a stretch for her? I want to see her in something else. I don't know if she's too young, if the film sort of came out too early, that she'll get any buzz, but I thought she was terrific.
I think she's great. The name who I'm actually really upset is not on here, and I butcher her name every time, Amanda Steinberg.
Yeah.
For Hate You Give, which I think she is just incredible in that movie.
Do you remember her in Hunger Games?
Yes.
I know.
Yes.
Little Rue.
I've been waiting for her to have a breakout performance since then. And I mean, she's taken on all these like projects that haven't really went anywhere, like The Darkest Minds. And I saw her in this, and I remember like she's just such a powerhouse in this film. And that's an interesting film for me because it's told from a younger perspective. There's so many movies now where we're talking about like race wars and things of that nature. But to kind of see it from a teenage perspective, I think that's what makes that movie so special and so different.
Agreed.
But yeah, it's weird that she's not mentioned on anyone's list. I mean, that movie in general, I feel like it's being horribly overlooked in a lot of different categories.
I thought it was one of the best movies of the year.
Me too.
Yeah, but maybe again, kind of hopeful, maybe too light. I don't know. And then all these, major actresses are coming out with these very dark and dramatic films this fall. So I think that's why, it's maybe people think it's too cotton candy. But that's sometimes it's hard to act as the other stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Nicole Kidman is on this list for Destroyed. Did anybody see that?
I haven't. I'm seeing it Monday.
I haven't.
Yeah.
So I will just say briefly that I think Nicole Kidman is really good in Destroyer. I think the movie itself is not that great. I think it's a very dark movie. It's very predictable where it's going to go. But she kind of disappears into this character because, makeup. It's very similar to like Gary Oldman or even, Bohemian Rhapsody with Rami Malek. But I don't think this movie elevates her as much as it should, but her performance is great. So, but I know a lot of people are talking about this. The movie that I have not seen, I don't know if anyone's at this table has seen, and I'm surprised that everyone has this so high up there, is Glenn Close.
Because I think the people that have seen it have just said she should win, or she's going to win because of her body of work and because this film is so. I think the people who have seen it feel so passionate about it. That's why it's all on everybody's radar. It's
just strange because I don't know that many people who have seen it.
I haven't seen it, but if she wins, I'm all for it. It's a long time coming, Been a long time coming.
Lady Gaga for A Star Is Born, obviously. I mean, when I saw that movie at TIFF, I was just like, give her a nomination now.
Can they just give an award for best on-screen duo, or is that too MTV?
That's too MTV.
Yeah, it's too MTV.
Those two together is what to me the magic was.
Yes.
Is watching real love on screen instead of, most of the time you feel the relationship, people have chemistry or they don't.
Right.
But the characters fell in love. I'm not talking about them personally, but those characters in that movie fell in love with
Next
each
week
other.
You'll hear at the end of the award season, they'll be like, they are in a relationship. Lady Gaga is now dating Bradley Cooper. Exclusive now, 3 weeks early. Melissa McCarthy's getting a lot of love for Can You Ever Forgive Me? This one I don't get. I'll be honest, I don't get.
Kind of with you on that one. I thought she was great. I didn't love the film. And I think it was more because of the subject matter. I thought there was sort of no redemption and sort of no, she was caught forging these letters and didn't really feel sorry for it. And so I think when we're doing a film about we do a film about Freddie Mercury, you're like, that was a life. Like that was.
Yeah.
And maybe I just don't know enough about her real story, but it was just, I just kind of didn't understand. I didn't feel for her.
But what was so special about the performance? That's what I'm like looking at. When I watch this movie, it feels like a combination of a couple other Melissa McCarthy performances, like a little bit of St. Vincent performance in there, a little tone back of her comedic side. She's good at playing this sarcastic, snarky character. So it just kind of seemed like a combination of a couple different characters that she played. I didn't feel like this was anything new that we haven't seen before from her.
Yeah, I find it pretty dull, the movie itself. Yeah, and her performance, I think I've seen her much better in even the comedy movies that she did.
Yeah.
As opposed to this one.
Like Spy? Like she had range in Spy. Like at first she's like this like little cat lady and then she becomes a badass. Like I don't know.
Well, I think it's going back to that thing again. Let's reward the dark performance instead of rewarding, because it's kind of a departure, even though those other movies you're discussing are smaller films. She's not as well known. But she was nominated for Bridesmaids.
Yes, yes, that's true. That's true.
I really liked the performance. I thought she was great. I just didn't care for the person's personal journey and story, and that's just a personal choice.
Interesting. There is also talk about Olivia Colman in The Favorite, who, in my opinion, I would say, I don't know, her and Lady Gaga for me are like the two front runners up there.
Yeah.
If we're going off everyone's list online. I do
haven't
you
seen
agree?
it. I haven't seen the
You
movie
didn't see
yet.
it?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Oh,
yeah.
you should definitely see it.
Yeah.
You should definitely see it.
I'm looking forward.
If nothing else, for how wicked and wild that movie is.
That-
I mean, it's just insane.
It is my second favorite movie of the year.
What's your
Sweet.
first?
Star is Born.
Oh, okay.
It's so cliche already. Star is Born is your favorite movie.
Really,
of the year.
Nikki?
Yeah. But it is so twisted, and she is a petulant child and pulls it off. And actors, I'm sure worry sometimes, is my character going to be likable?
Yeah.
She didn't care.
No, she did not.
She did not care. I mean, in terms of acting and the levels, I think it's a step up from Lady Gaga. I think she just has certain levels that, because she's been an actress for so long,
Yes.
and she can just go to emotional depths, and it was that type of a role. Not saying Lady Gaga's not capable of it, but oh my gosh, I think the thing that she's going to have working against her, though, is it's a little bit confusing, because it's kind of Emma Stone's story. She's sort of the central character, and yet they're pushing Olivia for lead actress. If she was in supporting, she'd win.
Yes. Oh, I know.
She'd win, but they're making the bold choice, and I think maybe because she stood out in the movie, they put, Rachel Weisz and Emma Stone into the supporting category and pushed her to lead. But it's not really. Is she a lead? I don't know. I mean, she could sort of float it in between supporting and lead.
If you were to ask me after seeing that movie, I would say Emma Stone's the lead.
Right. The story really, it's her story. It's from her, not her perspective, but she's sort of the focal point that they all rotate around.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's very strange how they're pushing that one. I'm going to butcher this name, so I'm going to let Rama say it. The actress from Roma.
Oh, Yalitza Aparicio? There you go, Aparicio.
Said it much better than I would have.
Can you say it 5 times fast?
I can't.
Did you see Roma?
I haven't. Monday.
Okay.
No, sorry, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay. Rama, you think?
Loved it. One of the best movies of the year. Alfonso Cuarón is a maestro at storytelling. And I think he did the DP himself, right?
Yeah.
Not Lubezki.
No.
So it's so unique. It's so interesting the way the camera moves. I loved it.
Do you think she has a chance though?
I don't know if she has a chance, but she's wonderful. I love her performance in this one. So I don't know what the chances here. I can't make the prediction.
It's a hard sell, I think,
Yeah.
because first of all, Roma is very much a cinephile movie. I feel, don't you agree? I don't think the casual moviegoer is going to be like, you know what, I want to go see this weekend, Roma.
And it's 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
2.5 hours long.
And if you can make it through the 15-minute water throwing scene in the beginning of the movie, I think people are going to turn that off on Netflix, in all fairness. But I agree. Like she's an unknown, so she's kind of like the underdog this year.
Yeah.
And was she the one that was not an actress before? This is her first.
Yes.
Yeah. Which sometimes the Academy likes that.
I know.
Stuff. Yeah.
It's kind of hard to see.
Yeah.
And then Viola Davis, of course, is in the conversation. I feel like every time Viola Davis is in a movie,
her mouth.
yeah, she's in the running. Did you see what else?
I haven't seen it yet,
Oh,
so I can't even weigh in. But I love her.
Nikki, you're a little behind.
I'm behind.
behind.
I'm the only critic that hasn't seen Widows yet. It just hasn't worked out, but dying to see it. Sounds like my kind of movie for sure.
Loved it. It was not a perfect heist drama, but loved the performances. It was a performance-driven film.
But you think
Viola?
Viola?
I think she has a chance.
I disagree.
Yeah.
I think that
saying there's a chance.
I think Elizabeth Debicki is the one who should be getting the supporting actress nod.
She's good in that too.
And I think Viola Davis is great. I love Viola Davis. Don't get me wrong. But I've seen Viola Davis better.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. All right. So that's our Oscar predictions for Best Actress. And then we have 2 minutes and 46 seconds left on the show. So we're going to run through, we do our retro rewind picks. Rama, let's start with you.
All right, real quick. It's Superman, the movie, starring Christopher Reeve. It's coming to the 40th anniversary Blu-ray, I think November 6th. I'll be buying that. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's my favorite superhero of all time. Superman is better than Batman in every way possible. And even though people always make fun of me, hey Rama, what's with that ending with Superman going, flying back in time like that? It's like, so what? It's a movie. It's great. It's powerful, romantic. I can relate to Clark Kent because I was a bumbling idiot who can't talk to the girls I liked to when I was growing up. So this is the perfect movie, superhero movie for me. Yeah, go ahead.
Instead of doing a review, I want to ask if you can talk to girls now.
Still can't.
He tries.
Have you seen it?
I see.
Fails miserably.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
At Junkets, I seen him.
I'm going to watch you from now on.
Thank you.
I'll tell you something when we stop rolling. It'll make it so easy for you.
Appreciate it.
So mine was Lost in Translation. I know every time we do a movie critic pick or anything like that, it's always Nikki's gonna pick Lost in Translation. I love it. I love it. I love it. I think it's a perfect film. Every time I get on a plane, overseas, I have a ritual that I have to watch Lost in Translation. And every time I think, I'm not gonna get into it again, it's gonna be like, how many times can I see it? I find something new in it every time. I love nuanced performances. If we're talking about like Star is Born and that chemistry, what a beautiful relationship they had on screen. And Scarlett Johansson's mullet is a thing of legends. That's where I'm leaving it.
There you go. I want to just say that I completely agree with that. I think Lost in Translation is hands down Sofia Coppola's best film. It is my favorite performance by Scarlett Johansson. And in terms of Bill Murray, when it comes to the dramedy performance, I don't think he's done a better performance. They seem like two pairings that don't belong together, and they just work magic together. And it's a beautiful story. It highlights Tokyo, kind of like this fish out of the water story, and just the chemistry between those two is just so legendary and just beautiful. It's just a beautiful love story.
It's not a conventional, are they going to do it, or they didn't, or they did. It's just like, it's a different type of relationship you hadn't seen on screen before, I think. And his smile at the end, oh my gosh.
So what does she whisper to him, real quick?
My answer is, it doesn't matter, because it is all there.
Is
So
that
it
what she
sort
said?
of doesn't matter
Okay.
what he says. And I know when you Google it and you YouTube it, you can hear what he says, because they actually turn up the audio. But in my
really?
opinion, yeah.
What does he say?
You know, I forget. Because the point is, it doesn't really matter what he says to her.
Okay.
I think, in my opinion, it doesn't, because you kind of feel, I like the ambiguity of it, but I kind of feel like everybody's got to YouTube it now. We got to
Yeah, I know. We'll do it afterwards.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm going to pick a very random movie that's on Amazon Prime streaming. It's something that I grew up with, and I'm sure neither one of you, maybe you've seen it, Rama, but I know, Nikki, you didn't see it.
Let's see.
It's called Clifford with Martin Short and Charles Grodin.
Wait.
I love that movie.
And
The dinosaur?
oh my God, Stefan. I watched this movie as a kid. It was weird. It was I think it came out in '94. And I remember it was when we had VHS tapes, and it was like a movie that bombed horribly. And I would have my parents go out to the video store every week, and I would quote it. And it's like, Uncle Martin, can we go to Dinosaur Land? And it's so creepy, because like Martin Short plays a 10-year-old kid, and he so looks like a 10-year-old kid. It's so creepy. And it's like this demented story about this kid who's demented, and the uncle, like, he drives him crazy, and it's so wild and silly and just strange. And I know it's either people love this movie or they hate this movie, and there's nobody in between. But I love this movie. I remember, I will say this on the air because I can say it now, is that I watched that movie so many times that I got a dual VCR so I can copy it and make a copy so my parents wouldn't have to keep watching it, because that's when videotapes were like $100 a pop. Who had $100 to blow on a VHS tape?
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I love that.
Oh my God, Dinosaur Land, yes.
I
Uncle
love
Martin,
Clifford.
yes.
Is that your favorite dinosaur movie of all time?
No, I still love Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park, the first one. Oh my God. Man, 93, 94, the 90s were just a great time. So are the 80s.
80s and 90s.
Yeah. They just don't make movies like that anymore. I don't know if do you think that's because we're like older now, that like we look at like the 80s and the 90s as that heyday of film, where like there's so few movies that come out nowadays that you want to revisit over and over again? Like, I can't tell you the last movie where I would watch over and over again.
I've had several, but I think a lot of it is when you're a teen or whatever age you were, you feel a connection to stuff, and it stays with you, and so it has that special resonance that maybe, and we see so many films, but I also think they're making less romantic films and less films about relationships, like true relationships.
Yeah.
And I think the 80s and 90s there was a lot of that, and I think sort of, it's like the superhero stuff, and the other stuff is selling, animated, that kind of thing. So maybe it's the sort of the sweetness and the intimacy that we're sort of like gone away from.
Yeah, I agree.
My favorite movies era is actually the 70s, but that's another topic for another time.
Okay. Yeah, I think Anthony's going to kill us if we keep going. So right now, just as we end the show, tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find your work.
So I'm a correspondent for Fandango. So all my interviews in that are up at fandango.com and at Nikki Novak on Instagram and Twitter.
And yeah, you can find me on YouTube, youtube.com/ramascreen1, and also Ramascreen on Twitter and Facebook.
And I am at We Live Entertainment or on Twitter and Instagram at The Other Scott M. See you next week. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe to the show. Bye.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.